you want to make sure that they have the stuff to back it up with, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a sex therapist doesn't mean they have training and...
I'm Amy.
I'm April.
Certified sex educators, sexperts of the year, and best-selling authors.
And we're on a mission to help you have more spicy, connected, and amazing shameless sex. Welcome to the Shameless Sex Revolution.
We're so close, it's like we have our own language. We're making sex and relationships shameless.
To learn more, go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.
You were listening to a Pleasure Podcast. For more from our sex podcast collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.
Well, hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome back to the Shameless Sex Podcast. We are here to talk to you all about how to find the right sex and relationship coach and therapist, but also how to become a sex educator, a sex and relationship coach, and a sex therapist. And we get this question often from
we
people.
do. And we also both are certified sex educators. And I finished what Heather McPherson, this guest, she founded, she established and created what we're going to talk a little bit about and weave in. But I am a certified sex educator from the Sexual Health Alliance, which I was so stoked that she came on the show.
Yeah.
And we've had Dr. David Lay on the show. He's part of their board and was teaching a lot of classes throughout the program. Also, Charlie Glickman, Midori teaches their kink.
Yeah.
There's like
so many of their presenters have been on our show.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I loved having kind of one-on-one, two-on-one time with Heather because I've only seen her from afar and really loved her work.
Yeah. And I think this episode will probably apply to most people as how to find the right sex and relationship coach or therapist. I think maybe we do talk about the differences between a therapist and a coach. And like we were saying, at least once a week, we get an email from someone who wants to get into the human sexuality field, specifically in education or therapy or coaching.
Someone that just messaged us about it was someone that works at Swan Medical in Los Gatos, because Dr. Castillo and Remy have been in our show a couple of times. And one of their folks that works there was like, what would you recommend? And we're like, okay, there's, a few different options. And this is a great option.
Yeah, totally. And why not have some guidance as you go find those options? And also, if you're going to pay money for a program, you might as well really feel good about the program you're signing up for.
Well, and lastly, I'll just add that even if you're not wanting to be a sex and relationship educator or coach or therapist, this episode is still for you. We talk about a lot of other
It's
facets.
actually more so about how to find the right one,
exactly.
as opposed to about becoming one.
I have one.
Yeah, me too.
We all
I have a couple.
Yes.
Wait, I have a marriage. Let's see. I have LMFT. I have an ENM therapist coach person. I have my Chinese medicine over here, like 5 million doctors over there. Well, it takes a team.
It does take a team. Mm-hmm. It's right. And you're amazing for
Thank
all
you.
of the work that you do.
Thank you, Chip.
Good job.
So, y'all, when this episode comes out, I think we will be 2 weeks away. Oh, it's on your birthday. Oh, my God. This is the past and that's the future. And this episode's coming out on your birthday.
Week from today.
Everyone.
My partner said, he's like, so now that you're 42, I was like, that's 1 week away from today. It was this morning.
You're like, I still have time.
I still do have time. Someone did yesterday card me.
Ooh, well, yeah. I see you get carded all over the place.
Well, I went to get a colonic as well and took my stepdaughter. She would hate that I'm saying this, that it's important for your health sometimes to just get that hydrotherapy.
But you went with your stepdaughter?
I took her because constipation happens.
That's pretty special. Are you holding hands at the same time?
No. We went separately.
Okay.
She just is...
I was kind of kidding.
She's
about
barely
that part.
20 years old, and she's like, hasn't talked to anyone about it, but it was very vulnerable for her, and she didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that the woman was like, "You're way too young to have a daughter at this age." I was like, "Oh, she's not my daughter by birth. However, I could have actually had her. I would have just been 20 something. One."
Yeah, but you look like
this
you're
one drunken night in Mexico.
Oh my God. I had a lot of orgasms and made a baby. Yes. Okay. So that's cool. I'm glad
Thanks
you're taking
for the
care
shout
of your
out.
anal
I
health.
hate my birthday.
And happy
Amy.
birthday, Chip.
Aww.
And I get to spend it with her because we are going to be at a trade show.
Do you like the birthday song? You're not singing it right now.
No, I like the birthday song in Spanish, and I like a couple other variations of the birthday song, but the regular, traditional whatever in English, I think is terrible.
Shout out to my ex-husband, because today when we're recording, it's his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday to you.
Yom yom haledet, yom yom haledet. That's in Hebrew.
I like that.
I don't remember the rest of the words.
Well, happy birthday to all you July
Birthday
babies.
humans.
This episode is about birthdays. It kind of is because, sex equals birthdays. So yes, as I was saying, this is written in the past, but for the future. And then when you hear this, if you do listen on Tuesday, April's birthday, hold her in your heart and say happy birthday to her.
Thanks, Annie.
And then 2 weeks away, we go to Seattle, not to celebrate April's birthday. We go there for what is our current last. Like, this could change. We could add more events to the schedule.
But based on the success of the previous shows, not to
yeah.
interrupt, holy shit, can we just
Chicago.
reflect on Chicago?
Yeah.
It was wild. It was so much fun. Zanies, shout out to
It
Zanies.
was sexy as
It
fuck.
was so cool. Shout out to Jody Provocative,
Yeah.
but Provocative. She was our guest and a guest speaker. Incredible. We had so much fun. We packed the house. Uberlube represented all
Yeah.
of our sponsors. Magic Wand. Aneros showed up in full form. Some of their reps came. And shout out to Womanizer and a big shout out to Pure. They have incredible products as well. We have some amazing sponsors that will also have products and maybe folks at this next show in Seattle.
Yeah, so if you come to our show in Seattle, tickets are still available. So get them ASAP. Go to our website, shamelesssex.com, and get tickets. But here's the kicker. We have VIP tickets where you get over $500. I almost said $1,000, but $500 worth of
sex toys. What would you do with all those?
Yeah. But those are, they were sold out. We just added a couple more there. So those are almost sold out. It's kind of silly to not do that because you get guaranteed amazing sex toys.
3 spots left, but those could disappear.
This is
by
a week
this
away.
time.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to go to shamelessex.com
Yeah.
to then we'll have a link to how to buy tickets, and then you can select the VIP package. What is it? It's an extra $40.
I think it's $40.
And you get all of this. You get front row seating as well. And the VIP people at Zanies were like right there. It was awesome. I don't exactly know the Crocodile venue that we're at. It's called the Crocodile.
Figure out when we're
in
there.
Seattle.
Yeah.
But you do get a separate area as well. And if you want to, you can hang out with us
Before the show.
before the show.
Yeah. And if you don't want to, then we understand.
I forgot about sport sheets. I can't forget about sport sheets too.
Sport sheets. I love
What?
sport sheets.
Yeah, and Amy tied me up in one show.
Yeah. we don't know what's going to happen in the next one.
No,
It
we
just
don't.
depends.
It's fucking wild. Some of the photos. Whew. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Go to our Instagram.
That was
Shameless
fun.
Sex Podcast Instagram.
Yeah.
All right. Ready for a sex question?
Oh yeah.
Okay. This is inspired by the recent episode that we did about pleasuring the D, I believe. So in sex, my problem is not how to please the D. It's how to find people with Ds to please me.
Oh, sorry. I love this.
Yeah, me too. I can relate. Well, not today, but a long time ago. Most don't even try. When I communicate what I want, they don't understand. They can't even communicate what they want out of it. And I'd love to hook up, but when it comes to sex and the sex is boring or there is little to no emphasis on my pleasure, I get angry. I recommend podcasts and books, but they don't have any interest in learning more. Any tips on what to do or how to bring men into this conversation?
Son of a monkey's
great
titty.
conversation to have.
It's a hard one though, because you can't make people do anything.
We can't. Yeah, but then you know what you can
invite.
do? Not fuck them.
Oh,
How about that?
Ooh.
How about that? When you hang out, when you are actually intimate with someone. So I'm not going to telling everyone to do what I do, but this is why I don't fuck most people on the first date, even as an ethically non-monogamous person right now. That still kind of stands because I like to check out bodies, meaning like make out and like their touch and their presence before I actually have sex with
their
them.
voice when they show up and they're like, "Hi, Amy."
And also how open are they to talking about sex? And if that's not really the thing before, then I'm not going to have sex with you because it's out of alignment for me. And I know that not everyone is me. So for this person, if you hook up with someone and they're closed off to being open about talking about sex, just talking about it, and they don't care about your pleasure. And when you try to talk about it, they're kind of like, well, no, the last girl I hooked up with was really into it, which they say a lot. Then don't hook up with them again. Drop them. They're out. They don't deserve to engage with your body.
Or if you think that there's potential for them to maybe be curious about your pleasure eventually, because sometimes it is awkward in the beginning.
Yeah.
No matter what. And if I made all of my decisions based on the first time I hooked up with someone, even after the first date, on continuing or just kicking them to the curb, I would have missed out at some point. I understand the frustration because it can be frustrating. There's also a big gap between a lot of, let's say, straight dudes and straight clit owners, straight women, in terms of the pleasure gap. And that's in our book.
That's real.
We talked about
It's
that.
real.
It is real.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our listeners out there, I'm grateful for. There's a lot of straight dudes listening that are partnered and some are looking for partners. And we look at the stats sometimes. I'm like, wow, we have so many dudes listening. I feel like we need a shameless sex dating app. We don't have one. And there probably are. We met a beautiful D in San Diego.
Oh, beautiful D.
That was doing all the work and reading the book and was looking for the right person because he cared about partner's pleasure and he wanted to learn more. And I think it's going to take someone that has that same mentality on some level.
Totally.
But I don't really think kicking them.
Not literally kicking them. But
no, kicking them to the
curb. But if you're hanging out with them, you're
that's my solution.
Yes. If you're trying to advocate for your pleasure, they're a no to it or to learning more or accepting the fact that we could all, including Amy and April, learn more, then I say don't hang out with them again. And then how can you have these conversations with men, with penis owners, like bring them into this conversation here a little bit more. And I guess we can look at it 2 ways. One is like if I were to actually talk to a sexual partner, I would do this one before having sex. I would say like, tell me about what you're most excited about in terms of hooking up with me. Or, I would, and that's kind of brave or bold, but like, I want to hear that you want to worship this pussy or that you just like somehow get turned on by my pleasure or maybe it's not those exact things, but there's some variation of that, which that conversation would also show you how skilled they are about talking about sex. But I'm different. And for this person too, how to find more open-minded, even straight dudes, open-minded straight dudes. I don't know if you're doing dating apps.
Fly to Seattle.
Go to Seattle.
To our show. I'm
August
sure
1st. They will all be there.
Penis-owning pleasure seekers that are wanting to please that pussy.
So I was going to go more with a dating app called Field.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're right.
FEELD, Field. I've met some really amazing people on Field, and they're generally more open-minded and about pleasure, not just like, their cocks and their pleasure. I can't speak for all of them out there, but I think if you get out of like mainstream kind of world, you can find people that have moved beyond that mainstream idea that the D comes first, which is, there's a whole book about this called She Comes First, and it's written for a reason.
Yeah, that's true. He's been on our show.
Yeah. It really matters.
Yes. And he's got a PhD in fabulous pleasing the pussy because if she doesn't come first, then a lot of other things can happen. And we're not even saying this because we're biased because we have vulvas and we're mostly, you're straight and I'm in a monogamous straight relationship right now. And
a little more flexy.
Yes.
Can I say flexy?
I think so.
I like that.
I've pleased pussies in the past and I think that it's really important to think about other people's pleasure. However, what you were saying, Amy, I would probably be very timid about being like, hi, why do you want to, what do you want to do with me?
You can make it fun. More
Yes.
like, so what are you, like being sexy, kind of like, so what are you most excited about in hooking up with me? Like what excites you the most? Or like what comes to mind when you think about your hands in my body? Like what are you going to do? Like what would you do with that? And just,
I would never be able to do that. I'd be like, okay, let's try.
Half the men listening to me, they're like, fuck you, Amy.
Yeah. Well, because it could be difficult and I like this. And I think that if I had the courage, which is an evolution, right? It takes courage and it takes a lot of being vulnerable if you're the person being asked.
Yeah.
Because if you're new and you don't know this person really well, you might be like, what are they doing with this information?
Yeah.
Right? What are they going to do with this information? Am I going to say the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Am I going to turn them off by...
Like, am I too much?
Right.
Not enough?
If they're like, I want to feel your tits and you're like, I hate when my tits are felt. Right?
Well, I wouldn't say it that way.
I'm just giving you a broad
I would be like,
example.
so that's what I was going to add to what you're saying is, okay, if you don't want to do what Amy Baldwin says, what if you just talk about boundaries before? So like, hey, before we actually engage...
Don't touch my tits.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there's this comment. I think maybe, I don't know if it was Allie who was in our episode last week or Michael. I think it was Michael who's at the end of this month, a guest.
From the play.
That, and so he said, because they
pleasure
asked,
parties, they're sex parties.
They asked people at the sex parties to share their boundaries, and there they zogs are sharing their boundaries. And if they say, I don't have any boundaries, that's actually very alarming. Because that shows one, that you are not in tune with your body. Two, you don't really, or maybe you're not skilled at communicating about sex. So that could be a good way to tell, should I even have sex with this person?
Or in my case, I was talking to Michael and sometimes I'm like, people just sometimes have so many boundaries. I get lost in the boundaries. And he's like, wait, what? And I was like,
turquoise.
Well, yes,
turquoise
triggers me. And I was like, we have turquoise everywhere.
But that could lead into a conversation of, if they're like, I don't know, I don't have boundaries, or like everything's cool, or what are boundaries? Then maybe don't have sex with that person.
That's a little scary, actually.
Yeah.
They have
you don't
no
have
boundaries at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and maybe you could drop into a deeper conversation with them if you feel so inclined and ask them, okay, you don't have boundaries,
but here's my list.
How do you feel about listen to my boundaries?
Yeah.
And here it is.
Yeah.
No penetration.
Yeah.
And no JTT.
Do you still want to fuck? No?
No?
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah? More
Because
likely.
fucking isn't just about penetrating.
Do you still want to touch, bump
Do
uglies?
you like big sex toys like the magic wand that I'm going to put on my pussy so I can actually have
If you're
some-
boring and I'm not getting off, then I'm going to whip this out. Or actually might just whip it out no matter what because it's awesome. How do you feel about that?
I like this.
You intimidated by sex toys?
No.
Okay, let's do it.
If they're gently used, I might ask questions.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And I might not use it because I have my own.
It's from my ex-partner's ex-partner's ex-partner.
Did it go in their butthole?
Maybe, but I
Okay.
cleaned it. It was
That's even-
sanitizable.
That's great.
That's
See?
cute. We
That was
negotiated.
fun. No, it was really fun. I'm not actually wanting to use that toy.
No.
Here's my suitcase of items.
Yeah, these are
Why
my
don't you
toys.
pick one?
Yeah.
Do you like this turquoise toy?
Oh, triggered.
That was a fun. This is improv.
Improv.
Improv meets this role play, which was fun.
This is basically our live show now.
Yeah,
all of a
it
sudden.
is. Yeah.
Wait, this is what's kind of live?
It's live-ish.
Yeah.
We don't really edit much.
No.
Like the dog's barking, that's not
That's
getting edited.
staying in.
I rarely hear us edit unless we really fuck up or something like weird
Yeah.
happens, like a glitch.
Yeah.
Like when we first started,
Yeah.
it died the box. Not your box.
Socks?
Your box is alive.
Fox. All right.
All right,
Bye.
moving on. I think that was great. And also, something
it.
else you could do is you could contact another sex and relationship coach that might have more ideas of how to navigate this diverse terrain. I think Amy and I both have very different opinions about how we do things and different boundaries as well. So we could give you our advice, and you're definitely out there in the world of the unknown with the D's.
D's. I
D's.
love those D's.
D's can be difficult.
Yeah. D's. D's so difficult. All right. Anyways, we're moving on to the bio.
That was fun.
That was fun.
All right, the bio here. Heather McPherson is the CEO and founder of the Sexual Health Alliance, a premier education and certification provider for sexuality professionals. She is an ASECT certified sex therapist supervisor, licensed marriage and family therapist supervisor, and a licensed professional counselor supervisor. Heather has been published in outlets such as CNN, Rolling Stone, and Bravo. To learn more, go to sexualhealthalliance.com.
All right, everyone, it is interview time, and we are here with Heather McPherson, who is founder and CEO of Shaw. You're like, what is Shaw? Well, you heard a little bit about it in the bio, and you will learn a little more in this interview, and not just what is Shaw, but how do we find the right sex and relationship coach or therapist? Also, how do we become a sex educator or a therapist or a coach? We get these questions all the time in our email box. Yes, like our all the time.
I'm
People
like, we should
are
have a
asking this.
template drafted because we keep typing.
Well, we
this-
do.
Yeah.
We created a
okay.
blog post a
Oh,
couple
that's
years
true.
ago with all these links and added Shaw because you
Good.
did the
Yeah.
training to become a certified sex educator. We don't have a blog post about like the how to find the right sex and relationship therapist or coach. So maybe we can turn this into that after this interview.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a little bit of both. So let's just dive on in. You all already heard a little bit about Heather in the intro, in the bio. Heather, can you tell us and our listeners a little bit more about how you got to where you are today in the field of sexuality?
Ooh, that is a big one. Well, I started, oh my God, it feels like decades ago. At least it wasn't that long. But I started as a couples therapist actually and graduated, and I went to some trainings and couples started talking to me about sex. And I was like, what? We didn't have any training like this in grad school. What is this? But it's fun. And so what do? How do I ethically talk about sex? And for me, it was getting training, obviously, but it was strange because, you know, I went to a KCREP accredited program and I got wonderful training, but they didn't prepare us to talk about sexuality and sexual health issues in the therapy room. And so I took it upon myself to go find some trainings and find some education and workshops and mentors and supervisors so that I felt comfortable with it. And that set me on this really long journey. And at the time I was in Austin, Texas, and you had to travel far and wide to get any training on sex. There wasn't much. And so I went to a training in Minneapolis, and I went to this one workshop actually that was talking about how the field's changing. And it was talking about how it was an ASEC conference. So it was talking about how ASEC isn't certifying touch professionals anymore. And it was 2015. And it was an incredible experience because Esther Perel was in the room. Dan Savage was at that conference. So many people that you look up to were there. And there was a panel and Charlie Glickman was leading it. And they were talking about, hey, this is a disservice to not certify, touch professionals anymore. And that included a lot of different professionals. And I was like, oh my God, we should be having this conversation locally because Austin, really progressive city in Texas, like the bubble, right? And so I was like, we should be having these conversations. And I really wanted to have like the inclusive conversations where everyone had a seat at the table, everyone was talking to each other. Because I felt whenever we were learning from each other, just like in that one room, when we're learning from each other, we're just better for it. And we become better professionals no matter what professional you are. And so I came home and talked to a bunch of people and was really lucky enough to meet incredible people at that conference and through my own network. And we launched what is now the Sexual Health Alliance to, provide what we called sexceptional lectures at the time. Now we call them sexceptional weekends. But to provide a space and a community for people where everyone felt included and there could be certification for everyone. So we have sex workers, surrogates, body workers, therapists, medical professionals. I really want medical professionals to be part of the conversation because I feel like it's important for us to learn from them and them to learn from us. I think medical professionals get 3 to 10 hours of training in sexuality.
That's just
and
crazy.
So I was like, what? Like, it's the same thing for all these professionals. They just don't get any training in sexual health. And so I wanted to change that.
I love that. And I want to commend you. I mean, you have your credentials. If people are watching on YouTube, I think it says our names. But Heather, it's like she has like, I don't even know many certifications or licenses, like probably like 100 at
like
this point.
ABCD, EFG, ESCB,
ABD. I'm like, I love this. And
the
you just
alphabet soup.
Yeah.
And I respect you and I respect Shaw so much for what I learned and took away from it. Even as a sex educator before I was certified, I learned so much. And the cool thing about it, and I have a question for you, but the cool thing was being at these exceptional conference weekends, which they were online. You could do some in person. I wasn't able to, and you had to be present. And so you'd go into these breakout rooms, but I was so impressed with all of the licensed marriage and family counselors and therapists that were there to learn about sex. And I was grateful because I think that sex is such a huge part of a lot of people's lives, and people, they have trauma, they have shame, and that's why we exist. And it's just like, I was grateful because my sister's she's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's never had any sexual training. And she and I get kind of like in this battle mode sometimes. And I'm like, yo, like what, like is it, but she's like, impatient and blah, blah, blah. So I kind of knew the outer workings of how and I know it's different per state and she's in Illinois, but I know that we've talked to Dr. Nan and Dr. Nan's like, yeah, you don't get any really real training. So I love people taking the initiative to do SHA, to become really educated about sex and sexuality and how like fluid it is and ever changing. So thank you for creating that platform. Thank you for me. And so I just wanted to commend you because I'm really excited to see you here. So in terms of a question, so when it comes to sex or relationships and wanting to find the right therapist or coach, and this is a big part of our book as well, because it's like, get help, get support, when you need it. Relationships are always evolving and changing. So when it comes to finding this right therapist or coach for you, what should they know before they shop around? Should all sex therapists be created equal? In air quotes, let's say
lots of air quotes in that one.
Yeah, air quotes and air quotes.
Yeah, that's a big question. So with Sexual Health Alliance, whenever I created the training and the certification programs, I thought to myself, I want our students to be the highest trained, highest educated professionals out there, because not only is it like affects my reputation. But also, if you're out there doing work, this job is hard enough as it is. And so to be able to have all the resources in your back pocket was really important to me. And, there's lots of, credentialing agencies per se, right? Like there's lots of licensing boards and certification boards and different requirements depending on where you are. And there's the ASEC, the American Association of Sexuality Educators, Counselors, and Therapists, that require 150 hours plus of trainings, continuing education in certain categories. With Sexual Health Alliance, we pride ourselves on going after students that are sex nerds at heart, right? They're not afraid to do the work. There's people that, God bless them, they've been in the field for a really long time. They just want to check the box. Yeah. Right. And so they're like, just give me the certification. I know what the fuck I'm doing and just give it to me. Right. And so we're not like that. We want to be able to provide the highest quality, have super high integrity for the program. And so our certification, the base certification, is over 200 plus hours of CEs that you get. And,
which tell people what CEs are, though, because I didn't know until I was like,
education.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's a CE?
Yeah. It's like therapists, doctors, lawyers, everyone has to do these things.
Yeah.
Kind of fields.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the profession. Doesn't matter if you're a therapist, educator, counselor, therapist, coach. You have to have CEs in order to get certified. And so, for some organizations, you have to have 150. For our organization, you have to have 200 plus. And I kind of set it that way because there's a lot of people that get certified that maybe don't know how to talk about kink or don't know non-monogamy, don't know, some of those specific, problem sexual behavior, which is what we call it instead of sex addiction. There's a lot of those advanced trainings that isn't in the regular curriculum to become certified. And I thought, in today's world, with everything changing, I want that in there to be mandatory.
So is this something, so when we're talking about like how to find the right sex and relationship coach or therapist, am I looking to make sure not only that they have the LMFT and some coaches won't have that, but I want to look to make sure that they have specific external training beyond I just became a therapist or a coach, right? I'm looking for things like, I've spent X amount of hours with Shaw or with other programs.
Yes. Yeah. So you want to know how much training they've received to become certified, and then how much training on top of that they've had in specific areas, right? You might want to go to a therapist that has specific training in problem sexual behavior or sex addiction, quote unquote, and you want to make sure that they're not going to tell you to just stop having sex, right? That you want to make sure that they take a harm reduction model, or that they've gotten training from, one of your other guests, Dr. David Lay, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really important to look for the amount of hours, the specific trainings they've had, and who they're learning from, unfortunately, right? Like it's hard to say, but who you learn from is important. And so when you look at the hours, when you look at the specific trainings, when you look at like where they're getting their information from, because this is such a new field, there's so much research out there, and it changes, and there's just so much good information. So you want to make sure that you're learning from people who take that into account when helping you. So, Sexual Health Alliance, of course, you can go to our website. There's like Find a Professional. We partner with stellarpro.co, and they verify your trainings and hours in order to know where you're coming from. But you can also go to asec.org. They have ASEC certified sex therapists as well. And you just want to make sure that you're trying out a couple people, because also, you can go to someone with all the training, but you might just not like them. Right?
Yeah. I just don't like your vibe.
Vibe is important, right? Yeah. So you want to make sure that you like really feel comfortable talking about your deepest, darkest desires.
I used to tell Amy that I would eat therapists for breakfast, because every time I go to one, I'm like, and it would be like a two session maximum. And then I'm like, you're not really helping me with fucking shit right now.
She's got that, like, I'll be my own therapist. And so you, but you don't
not too good.
She's not trying to, but it's like, you need a therapist that can see that and is like, oh, I see what you're doing. You're trying to run the show right now.
Responsible for better help. And like the people that they assign me, I'm like, are you 14? Because And I was really nice. I wasn't being rude,
She
but
not
I was
to
like,
say that to
I
them.
didn't say, I was
No.
like, how long have you been therapizing?
I know.
Um,
I know. Well, and it's really difficult because people,
Yeah.
therapists and coaches with advanced training, they aren't taking insurance. That's another hard thing,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
It's not, it's affordable.
they've spent all this money and oftentimes they don't take insurance. So it is really difficult to go through large agencies like that.
And you can go through psychiatrists, and sorry, Amy, I won't interrupt anymore, but you can go to like expensive psychiatrists that have PhDs or they've been in so much training, not even for sex though, but so many educative courses about how the brain works. And then they have no real research or information or helpful information for people with trauma in sex or trauma around like acts of sexual violence or shame and that's just part of like, that's why I love Dr. Nan so much and the work that y'all are doing, because I'm like, damn, I can't believe psychiatrists don't have this training.
Well, this is why I like some of the models that people have. I know Charlie Glickman has a sliding scale model. Actually, I've worked with him many times. I think April has too. We have Zoom calls for our sex and relationship stuff. And he has a sliding scale where like, here's the lowest rate and then here's the highest rate and you pay based on what you can pay. Also, I've seen other sex therapists and coaches have like one scholarship. I think Melissa Fritchley used to do this. Like once a month, there'd be a scholarship spot, or maybe it was once a week where it'd be a discounted rate. And I really appreciate that. And so I'm not saying all people are doing this, but you know, if for someone who's like, I can't afford that, there might be people who can fit you in some way, shape, or form. So I'm curious about this because you're talking about like, you know, so let's use the kink example. So I'm a kinky person. Yeah, I'm a kinky person, and I need a therapist who actually specializes in kink, understands kink. So why would it be so important for my therapist or therapist to be educated on how to support their clients, that's me, my sexuality, while not creating more shame?
Oh, yeah. And I cannot tell you how much we have seen this in our group practice that, you know, many of our therapists have come from other therapists that either shame them or pathologize the kink, right? Well, you have a problem because of this kinky relationship you have. Or you have a problem because you are having multiple relationships. Maybe they're consensually non-monogamous. And so it's really critical to understand how much training they might have, how much continuing education and community they might have, because there's a lot of even certified sex therapists that maybe didn't have any training in kink or BDSM. And so, you know, you want to make sure that they have the stuff to back it up with, right? Like I'm a sex therapist doesn't mean that you have training in kink and specialized training, right? Because you want to understand the research behind some of these issues. You want to understand and be able to talk to your client or patient about, you know, what are the risks associated with it? Maybe someone brand new to kink. You want to make sure that you have awareness around that, and then also the added layer of relationships that are engaging in kink or consensual non-monogamy or swingers or whatnot.
So can you ask people that? Like if you, like, for instance, go on the database, are you certified in is it like a kink specialist? Is it like,
there are, yeah.
Because I know
there
Midori is
are.
one, right? And
Yeah,
I love her so much. So yeah, do you like, I want a kink specialist? I like this term.
Yeah.
I want to be a kink specialist.
Yeah,
You are, Chip, you are.
runs. Yeah, exactly right. Like Midori runs a kink informed certification program, and so she actually trains professionals on how to do this. But you do want someone, if they're not certified, if they're not kink informed certified with Midori or someone else, then you want to make sure that they have some kind of training and background in working with kinky people, because I think that a lot of times many professionals will fall into the fallacy of, well, I have kinky friends, so I can help you.
Oh God. Okay.
Which happens a lot, right?
I was spanked once, so I can help you. Yes.
There you go. Yes.
Hey, yo, Dip, pass me that kombucha. Trying to get my pussy health on.
Chip, that's for your gut health. When it comes to vaginal health, you need very specific probiotics, such as what Soaking Wet does from VB Health. Soaking Wet packs a punch with a blend of probiotics, prebiotics, and vitamins that are like sending your vagina to a spa. If only spas also guarantee better sex, that'd be kind of fun.
Maybe some do.
Some might do that. This isn't just about health, though. It's about pleasure. Increased wetness? Check. Total vaginal health? Check. Plus, soaking wet makes things, well, soaking wet. Get soaking wet and keep those good times coming, literally. And the best part, soaking wet is formulated by medical doctors at VB Health.
I also have a shameless share here. I don't think he'll mind because my partner has been taking the load boost formula for a couple of weeks now, and I have absolutely noticed his loads being loadier. I'm not joking, Amy, or anyone listening.
I like that word.
His loads, I made it up. His loads have been bigger, and although I'm not a connoisseur, I can definitely taste that pineapple extract. If you're ready to get your load boosted and your pussy healthy and soaking wet, then you have to visit soakingwet.com and use code shameless for 10% off, or click the link in the episode description. That's 10% off with code shameless at soakingwet.com, or just click the link in the episode's description. I hope you love that load of information.
Hey, sexy shameless listeners. I'm here to tell you that there's an incredible new arousal serum that takes you from 0 to super horny in mere seconds. You have to check out the Epiphany Clit Arousal Serum. We know we have a ton of straight dudes listening, and we love you guys. We're also pretty certain that most of you dudes want your partners to be having an amazing time. Did you know that only 65% of straight women orgasm during partnered sex, compared to dudes who climax 95% of the time? Wah, wah, wah. One of the reasons is because straight sex is so focused on penetration, and only 4% of women can climax from penetration alone. Hello, we need some kind of clit stimulation, y'all.
For real. And I'm definitely part of that 96%. And Epiphany is my new go-to for waking up my clit so I can get to Oville. With just 1 or 2 little drops, Epiphany can create a warming, tingling sensation that makes every stroke, swipe, or grind feel more explosive. The formula is silky smooth, won't stain your sheets, and is safe to use with sex toys. Oh yeah, did I mention it's pH balanced too? And right now, Epiphany is offering our listeners 20% off your order when you enter code SHAMELESS at tryepiphany.com. That's Epiphany, EPIPHANY, and use code SHAMELESS to get 20% off that delicious arousal serum. Tryepiphany.com, code SHAMELESS. The link is in the episode's description.
Yes. And I love that you can ask questions, right? So some people, it might just be like the little boxes. It's like, send us an email to see if you want to work with us. To like, some people do the free phone consultations before to, they're all the things, but don't be afraid to ask the questions. But okay, so here's the next question though. So say I'm a client, but I'm already working with the therapist or a coach. Yeah. And I'm like,
is that cheating? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Am I cheating? No. But so what are some of the signs that my sex or relationship therapist or a coach might not be a good fit for me? And how can I go about that? Do I go full DT and say, you're fired? Too soon in one? Sorry.
I think you can absolutely break up with your therapist. You can absolutely break up with them and fire them. And good therapists will know how to handle that, right? Ideally. But you absolutely want to be able to do that, want to be able to feel comfortable talking about that, because that's really critical to you getting the type of mental health needs met that you have. So I think that asking your therapist, coach, educator specific questions about how much training they've had in this world, how many types of clients they've had that they've worked with. Don't be afraid to get specific in your questions, because that will reveal a lot in terms of how comfortable they are talking about it. And for, the biggest sign that I see as far as how do you know if they're not probably the right fit is they say, well, no, but you can teach me. It's like, no, we don't want.
You're not paying to be a teacher.
Well, right. Because then, and there's some things that, there's some things that can be okay with that. But for some specific issues like this, where you're coming to get help with it, you don't want to have your therapist say, I'm open to learning. Mm-hmm. That's good, but you don't want to say like, I'm open to learning. You can teach me about it. I'll do the research. That's all good things, but you want to make sure that they have training, because that's how it happens, where therapists will unknowingly harm a client or a patient because they'll say, well, the kink isn't healthy. Will say things
I hate when people
that,
use the
which
word
don't.
healthy,
Yeah.
unhealthy, and like sometimes
That's
it
shameful,
applies, but like
in my opinion.
Or they'll say, well, it's because of your trauma. That's why you're kinky, which is also bullshit.
Yeah.
Mm.
No,
Wow.
I had rape fantasies since age 10. I don't have sexual trauma, y'all. I mean, I have like, later on some shit went down, but it was not before that.
And also, you know what I love? You know what I love in a therapist? When they say, I don't want to be seeing you forever. Like that feels always so good to me. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
So you're not just like a succubus trying to hope that I have more trauma to come back at you.
Make money off of you.
I love that where there's like an end, where there's light at the where they're like, I want to help you.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be seeing you forever. And I've had those moments with like Charlie Glickman, for instance, when he was helping me after I was going through my divorce, who was like, so I don't know that there's much more that we can do here, April. And I was like,
my like she graduated.
I did it.
And you also earlier gave a good example because we were talking about like, how do you know if they're not a good fit, but you're already working with them? You know, those 2 sessions with not Charlie, with someone else where you're like, I'm kind of running the show. You're not really doing much to like, you feel like constantly missed or
they repeat
triggered
something from last time where I'm like, you already said that.
Yeah.
So like, I think you're repeating a script here. Anyway, I'm not bashing therapists because I love them.
I mean, it's when your psyche is almost your brain is almost too present because you're having to manage the whole thing and you feel like you're either running the show or people pleasing or disappearing a little bit, and you're now maybe not the therapist, but you're in this weird gray area. And whenever you have this is a question too about that, like, what do you think about that? Like, whenever you're in that, like, I'm questioning this relationship. And granted,
as a person that's getting a therapy,
there are plenty of people who go to therapy who are going to push really hard and question the therapist left and right all the time because it's part of their thing. Their whole thing.
I love those clients.
Yeah,
They're so fun.
I don't, but I love that you do. Yes, but so like how can we differentiate those signs? I guess like the signs from like, okay, this really isn't a good fit to like, no, I have my checkbox to make sure that like, can I trust you? Can I trust you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really boils down to your gut. Like, do you feel comfortable talking about stuff with this person? And if you don't, then you have to listen to that and talk to your therapist about that, right? I mean, I think that there's certainly instances where maybe there's someone that just doesn't trust anyone or has a hard time trusting people. And those are things that you could work through with a therapist. But if there's things that aren't resonating with you and you're talking about it with your therapist and you're being upfront about it and it's still not quite feeling right, then pay attention to that.
I think that's great advice, Heather. That is great advice. And it's okay to have multiple therapists. I was joking when Amy was talking about that. I was like, does that mean you're cheating? You know, when you get a different hairstylist, I always did that where I'm like, I'm totally cheating on my hairstylist right now. But therapy, you can get different therapists. If I know sometimes costs or the budget, it makes it more difficult to see different people, but you could do that monthly. You could see if you have budget for a therapist, that was at least what I would recommend to folks if they have a budget and they're like, I can't afford to see a therapist every week. So you could just kind of get ones that are specialized in different areas. If
I'm doing right now, I have someone for sexuality, specifically like non-monogamy stuff. And then my partner and someone more for like just the relational world. Yeah. And it's great. And one's in person and one's online. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the key right there is that if you have multiple therapists, to make sure you know what you're working on with either of them or each of them. So having a specialist for sex therapy issues or for couples issues and having those be 2 completely different therapists is totally fine. It's always helpful too if they talk to each other, but it doesn't always have to be like that. You just want to make sure that you're clear in terms of what you're working on so you're not getting conflicting guidance per se.
I love that.
And, with Respark, we have a Respark Foundation, which slides to $25 an hour for clients, patients that are dealing with sexual harm. And so we often have clients where they come to the group for couples therapy, but maybe the foundation, because that's a lot of money to be paying for 2 therapists, right?
Yeah.
For maybe as an issue of, past trauma that they're dealing with.
That's amazing. $25 an hour. Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like a fucking latte costs more than that these days. Like, I'm like always shocked. And I'm not going to go on that road right now because I've done it before.
Not sponsored by Starbucks.
No, I know I live above a coffee shop that's not Starbucks that I paid $11 for a mocha and I brought my own cup. And I was like, are you
got
serious?
2 therapy sessions.
Yeah. So,
For real.
Well, I guess I know that's 2 mochas. Never mind. Sorry.
Mochas.
Yeah.
Almost. You're almost
Doesn't
there.
matter. It was a small, and I brought my own cup. So, moving to a question, because this is important, because we, as Amy said in the beginning of the show, and as I get asked in our industry, in the pleasure products industry, people want to know how they can become more educated and become certified. So, for people out there that maybe aren't in our industry too, that email us, who want to become a sex educator, a sex coach, a sex therapist, you also have this cool business. It's like the Shaw Business School for people that are, I think that is so fucking genius, because no one else has that can help people actually figure out how. I've been wanting to do that, to build their business in the field of sexuality in a way that won't deter you from making the money you deserve. So as founder and CEO of Shaw, what are your top tips as these folks start to venture down this path of education in sexuality fields?
I love that you said that, because my team was literally like, we got to get April and Amy if she wants in business school. Like, come on. And like, we have a business summit coming up too. So come on, tell us how to do podcasts, right? In this industry. But yeah, so I love the business. I have an undergraduate in business marketing. So I love the business side of it. It's so fun to me. And the marketing side, so fun to me. And so I really love helping new budding entrepreneurs and people that are starting their own business. And this field is hard, right? Like it's a different field. People say that sex sells. It doesn't, right? Like it is very difficult to market in this field. It's very difficult to understand like who you want to work with. And so helping young or even seasoned entrepreneurs actually create a business and making a living in it is a lot harder than I think a lot of people would think. And so, talking about the business pieces of it that maybe aren't related to sexuality, but just of like, how do you do the math of, here's how much money I want to make a year. And this is how to get there. It's like an actual real path of how to make that, which is really important. And I think a lot of people, especially therapists and coaches in this field, they want to help, right? Which is really noble, amazing. And yes, of course, we want to change the world. You guys are changing the world with shameless sex, right? Seriously, you girls are. Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And we need more of that. That we need more people talking about sex that actually are trained, because the amount of people on social media that are talking about sex that don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Not going to drop names, but I know what you're talking about.
Don't even get started. On TikTok, I'll watch videos. I'm like, what in the actual fuck?
Yeah.
No, you're
shame. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of them. And so I'm like, please be on social media if you're in our program. Please, if you're getting training, like talk about this in a way that makes sense. This research and evidence-based, like that stuff is so important. Mm-hmm. And so, I want to give as many tools as possible to make that happen.
Time for a quick break to talk about one of our sponsors, who just so happens to be our absolute favorite lube, Uberlube. Uberlube is a luxurious silicone lubricant, and it enhances intimacy. It's there when you want it, and it blends in when you're done with it, so you have control over that lube. It's long lasting and leaves the skin extra velvety, and honestly, y'all, I want it all over my body. Thousands of doctors in the U.S. are recommending Uberlube to their patients. It's body-friendly, less likely to change the pH, and it has vitamin E, so it feels extra moisturizing.
There's a reason why we've been a fan of Uberlube for years. There's no flavor or scent. It's even great for oral sex, everyone. But it's not just great for sex. You can use it for massage, your hair. You can prevent chafing. It even brings out the colors of your beautiful tattoos. And the bottle is absolutely gorgeous. It looks more like a cosmetic, so you can leave it anywhere shamelessly for easy access. Just go to uberlube.com and use the discount code shameless10 to get 10% off and free shipping. Again, that's uberlube.com right now with code shameless10 for 10% off and free shipping. This podcast is also brought to you by OMGS.com. Join over 1 million people who are experiencing more pleasure with OMGS. They take scientific research of thousands of vulva owners, showing techniques to pleasure that pussy. They turn this research into tasteful educational short videos, animated modules, and infographics. OMGS is for anyone who wants to learn about vulva pleasure or take it to the next level. Want to take your orgasms from good to out of this world? Then check out OMGS. Or if you're a vulva lover and want to up your pussy pleasuring skills, then you need to check out OMGS.
I've personally been recommending OMGS to my clients for years, and it's completely changed their lives. They have 3 seasons: external pleasure, internal pleasure, and sex toys. It's not a subscription service, and you don't need to download a thing. OMGS also makes a fabulous gift, and your purchase supports more pleasure research. So just go to omgs.com/shameless to get 10% off right now. Again, that's omgs.com/shameless to receive 10% off unlimited access towards enhancing your pleasure power. The link is in the episode's description.
Don't you think rule number 1, Amy, if we had any advice, would be if you want to start a sex podcast, don't put sex in your podcast.
Yeah, don't put it in your
There's
go.
a first.
Yep.
There's our first thing.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Sexual health
unfortunately.
alliance. Same thing. I was like, well, shit.
Oh, we fucked ourselves.
I know.
Yeah.
We're like, well, we can't get on the Today Show
Yeah.
for shameless sex.
Not yet.
Oh, yeah, not yet.
Not
We have the
yet.
scarlet letter that's changing.
I think, and also for folks who are, so this is the blog post we wrote because we got this question so often: how to become a sex educator or therapist or coach. And so I started this blog post with my story about how so getting my start with going to school for psychology, human sexuality, but I would just open it. So I didn't say, oh, you should open a sex shop, by the way. That's what I did. But with April, right, she got her start by working at Pure Pleasure, which is now online purepleasureshop.com, but at the brick and mortar that my mom and I owned for 12 years.
I studied law, Heather.
Yeah.
I did not.
That's so cool.
I did. And Amy was like, you're going to be great at this. I
Yeah,
was
here's
like,
a vibrator.
No,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't have a vibrator. I'm from Wisconsin.
Here you go.
Like, no.
Yeah, you're 23,
life
24. Yeah,
changed
you're ready
forever.
for this.
It
Yeah.
really did.
And so one of the things what it starts with is, if you're someone who like you're in the beginning phases, like I want some sort of career in sexuality, I would suggest working in some, or if it's not a sex shop, like interning for someone like Shaw. We have interns
Shameless
at
sex. We just want free. We want free workers.
Yeah, but also like getting that experience to see what your direction is. Because when I owned the sex shop Pure Pleasure, but let's pretend I didn't own it, right? Say I just worked there. I learned that I didn't actually want to become a sex therapist. I thought I did. I was more interested in giving like the playful tools about pleasure, and that became more education and coaching.
Workshopping. You really were great at
That's
work.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
podcasting and things. And so I think that's a really good starting point is either having some paid positions, some like introduction, adult whatever, or interning so you can get a little taste for it. And then, if you're already more advanced, then, we're going into this next question about Shaw. So maybe Shaw's the right fit for you. So let's just ask it. What makes Shaw different from other sexuality programs?
well, just to back up just a second, go intern for Same Sex, please.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to start out because you really learn about the industry. You learn from people who are really skilled in it, like you two, and you understand like what it really takes to be successful in this industry, which is different from other industries to a certain extent. And, you don't not everyone has to be a therapist. Being a therapist requires you to go get your master's degree, and that's 2 to 3 years of grad school, and then getting licensed, and
$100,000 later too.
Yeah.
You're like,
it's a
fuck, I got
very
more
long
minimum.
process.
Yeah.
It's a very long process, and we need more trained coaches and educators and counselors out there in all the different fields, right? Medical field, coaching field, etc. And then more sex shops, right? Like more people who are trained in sex shops. So yes, please go get experience and talk to people like you that understand what it takes in terms of what makes Sexual Health Alliance different, aside from the integrity of the program and just having the amount of hours and education and that the rigor of it, research-based, evidence-based. We also bring in the top people, the world experts.
You really do.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I was really lucky enough to meet them, and they're mentors of mine. They're incredible people like Dr. Chris Donahue and Dr. David Lay, and Midori and Dr. Elisha. There's so many. I can't name how many people there are a part of our program, but they are incredible because they push the field forward. And I really do think it's really difficult in this industry to be progressive. I mean, our tagline is progressive, radical collaboration, progressive, communities. And so it's really important to from my perspective is to push the field forward and really change things, because there's so many things that are telling us to contract, especially in today's world, to contract and not, be as loud or not be as progressive about this. And to be able to have mentors and people that are really changing things and reducing shame in the world and saying radical shit out there, and really doing the work themselves. Dr. Cristani is a huge mentor of mine because he's done the work himself. He's amazing. And so to have those people teaching the program, I think is really, really important. And the biggest thing that I'm really proud of is just our community. We have huge community like April and now Shameless Sex as part of our program. And the community is vibrant and so important because, again, whenever you're able to learn from each other and study together and go on, we have study abroad trips with Dr. Justin Lee Miller. When you're able to go to Amsterdam and
I want to hang out with Dr. Lay in Amsterdam
so badly.
Awesome.
I'm like, oh my God, it looks like they rage and have such a good time at Learn. Like it's, proper.
Yeah. And Dr. David Lay does advanced SARS sexual attitude reassessments with us. And like at Hedonism, we've done that in Mexico. And
You're selling me on hedonism.
Yeah. And that really pushes our field forward, I think. And it is really difficult to do that in a way that appeases the gods per se.
Totally.
I'm not sure really how to say that, but like to do it in a way where you're still following all the rules. You have to follow the rules if you want to be a part of the boards. And so to do it in a way where you're following the rules, but you're also having these immersive and experiential events is really critical to, I think, growth of professionals, to be immersive and to be there in person, experiencing these communities. I think is pivotal in your growth as a professional, but also personally. And so, with Dr. Justin Lee Miller to go abroad, that's amazing too, right? Like, and next year we're going to go somewhere really cool.
Ooh, Brazil.
I know we did. Yeah, we did Brazil too.
I know. I love that one. And just throwing it out there, Heather, just if you talk to Esther Perel, will you put in a good word for us?
Yeah. I can tell you, I'd be like, you need to come on.
We love her so much. And she was on, I can't remember what segment of the curriculum that I was doing, because it's been a little bit now, but there was a segment where Dr. David Lay introduced her and I was like, wait, Esther Perel? And he's like, a dear friend of mine. I was like, damn it, David Lay, could you please help us? I love Esther Perel because she's really changed. Like she has been a mentor to me without consenting to it. I just love her books and her podcast that she had. That series was amazing. And I've read her book, The Mating in Captivity.
TED Talks.
I've read that book, though, Mating in Captivity, probably more than I've read any other book, even more than Emily Nagoski's book. And I love her work, but it's so readable. And if y'all don't have it out there, you can get it on Audible. I'm lazy. So sometimes I like people to read to me.
Yeah. So it's a great book. It's a great book. I love
it's
it
amazing.
Too. Yeah.
And I've read it, I think maybe 8 times, I want to say, and I love it. So, and that means it was read to me by her.
And speaking of business, Esther Perel has an amazing way of talking about sex without talking about sex.
Yeah.
I mean, she talks about sex, but she doesn't do it she does it in a way that's relatable to a lot of therapy and psychotherapy and psychology is a traditionally conservative field. And it's difficult to get people to listen, right? And get people to be like, this is important.
I feel like I've never heard her say like the word penetration before.
Probably not.
Probably not.
She's still talking about sex and like cheating, affairs, monogamy, non-monogamy,
eloquent way. And she speaks like 5 languages and she's just
how do you say penetration in 5 languages?
I do not know. I shall do it in accent.
Yeah. Again, Israeli husband. She's married to Israeli. Everyone.
Yes, I was. So it was time for a question. I was prompting. I'm just putting it out there into the ethers, for that next time you have tea with Esther Perel. So let's talk about who SHA is for, because we've been talking a lot about SHA, and I think this is important because I obviously took the SHA sex. I did the sex educator track, and
we didn't pay you to do that.
Nope, they did not.
I paid to do
pay her own money for this.
I did. I hard-earned money, and it was worth every dollar.
This is not paid for either. This episode, by the way.
No, it's not. And P.S. You can split it monthly, which is what I did, which was really helpful. Instead of having to come up with the money, I was like, oh, I can split it, which was really because. For me, I love layaway. It's like my mind page. Shopping at Kmart when I was little. I was like, I like layaway.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So
Thank you for the layaway option.
I did finish. I paid all of it out.
What is it, a firm? Like, so if flights now have a firm?
Yes, a firm, or there's Afterpay. I know all of them. There's
That's-
a car. I was going to say Carvana, but that's a car. So we talk about, obviously I feel like Shaw was for me, but for people that aren't podcasters or in the sex, they're not in the even like the pleasure podcast, not pleasure podcast network,
network.
pleasure products industry.
Mm.
Who would Shaw be for out there? And can anyone interested in the field of sexuality take the Shaw training? Do they need a bachelor's degree? Do they need an associate's? Because those things are sort of important to talk about.
It is so cool to see how many people in our program that are career changers. They completely are changing their life and their career, and not for the money. Obviously, we talked about that, right? Like they're in finance, they're in accounting, they're in totally different fields, engineering, completely different fields, and they're coming to Sexual Health Alliance to become a sex coach or a counselor or an educator. And there's so many people like that are changing their lives and changing career changers to become a certified professional. And I think that those people have a lot to offer and a lot to give. Because, as we were talking about finding the right professional for you, it really matters your background and where you come from.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot of people that no matter, if you're an engineer or you're a teacher, that there's a lot of people that are going to resonate with that and say, that's the person for me.
Mm-hmm.
So no, you do not have to have a bachelor's degree. We have a coaching program, so you can't become ASEX certified, but you can become Sexual Health Alliance certified coach, sexuality coach with it. And in order to become a counselor with a bachelor's, but in order to become a therapist, you have to have a master's. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
I remember seeing all these different kind of tiers, and then because there's the coaching one, and there's also you did just sex education, right?
I did.
And that one, so you don't have to have an associate,
And
bachelor's, anything.
So
to do that.
you have to have a bachelor's, but we
Okay.
have special so the coaching one, we have special requirements, like special circumstances. So you can apply if you don't have any college experience, you can apply and say, what experience you have in the field and why you think you're ready for this. Because
I love that.
The piece of it is that our program is like, it's not one-on-one, right? You
Mhm.
jump into the deep end when you get in. And so we do want you to have some experience coming in. And so, there's definitely people that have zero, but they have the passion and they're ready to learn all and read all the books. Again, you got to be a sex nerd, right? You got to be ready to read the books and read
There
the
were a lot of
research.
content creators, like cam models. I remember experiencing, and people that were OnlyFans folks that were producing content at OnlyFans. And so if you're a sex therapist, you can work any state. Can you work in any state, like via Zoom, or do you have to be a coach then? Whereas, because isn't when it's therapy, you have to have a license in the, I know it's gray, but that's why I'm asking. Cause you'll know of anyone that would know. Not that it matters, but you're a coach.
Yeah. So unfortunately, if you are a licensed therapist, you have to be specifically licensed in the state where you're seeing clients.
Mm-hmm.
They have what they call the compact, and psychologists have the compact too, where they can sometimes work in other states depending on the rules and licensing and regulations in that state. But your therapist has to be licensed in the state that you live in. You can live anywhere, but you have to be licensed in that specific state. So that's really important. You really have to check the state. It's really the therapist's responsibility, not yours as the client, to check the state rules and regulations. As a coach, you can work anywhere. And that's why there's a lot of therapists that also get a certified coach credential, because if you really are able to separate the businesses and make sure you're kind of clear legally, et cetera, you can work as a coach anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And that's I think that's like that gray area, right? Where, and we're not insulting people who are therapists and coaches, but they're like, there's like what you're saying, there's a separation, there's a difference between the things that you can say and do.
I'm going to get licensed in all 50 states. I'm changing my career.
I'll see you in 5 lifetimes. Jesus Christ.
I can't imagine the work that takes.
It's impossible.
Well, and therapy is different than coaching, right? Therapy is more in depth. There's definitely different types of therapy that you can provide. Coaching can be different. We're not going to dig into your child trauma in coaching usually, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure some coaches do, but I really I go off the Plicit model. I don't know if you guys know the Plicit model, but it's permission, limited information, specific suggestions, and then intensive therapy. And so it's kind of the categories and the levels of like how much you're able to work with a client or a patient. And at the end, intensive therapy, you need a therapist for that specific issue. So sometimes people just need permission to talk about it. Some people need limited information or specific suggestions. And then some people need intensive therapy.
Yeah. There's, I like that you differentiated the differences. I see what I did there. Between therapist and coach. And I always think of therapists having a lot more skill and ability to go into the past, even if that's not what happens. And coaches are focusing more on like the present and future. And maybe there's a little bit on the past, but they're offering different things. And coaches seem a little more like tool based in therapies. Therapists often say, when there's tools too, but a little bit more like, let's get into like the inner world of you. And they serve different times and places, and maybe you'll have both at the same time.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and that's okay. Again, like maybe let them know though that you're doing that. And
you're not cheating.
You're not
Remember,
cheating. That's not
cheating.
cheating. Esther Perel would not call that cheating in her definition. So can you tell us and our listeners more about how people can learn about SHA, how they can also find or work with you if that's available? Give us all the details, all the things.
Yeah, so I do have a limited caseload in my therapy practice. Respark.co is my group practice. We have about 25 therapists. A part of it, resparkfoundation.org, is the foundation that if you're dealing with any kind of trauma, we provide the integration between trauma and sexual health and people who are trained in both. And then sexualhealthalliance.com is the Sexual Health Alliance, which if you want a badass community that you can learn and grow with and meet other cool sex educators like April and Amy, go for it.
Join us in the SHA
the
light
dark side.
circle. Is it light and dark? It's gray. How about it's gray? It's light, dark, and gray. It's a rainbow. It's beautiful. Oh, I love this. I love talking to you, Heather. You're just so great with what you've done for the world. You are an amazing therapist, and all of the alphabet soup that goes after your name is definitely earned. I just have a deep respect for you and what you're continuing to do, and really appreciate you being on the show and taking time out of, because I know how busy you are, taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us at Shameless Sex and talk to our listeners about this topic that's so important. And sex is, remember everyone, it's not like always going to be about like, we're talking about pleasure. Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, you're going to need to get some support outside of your relationships, outside of just doing it yourself or reading a book, talking to other people. I know for me has been life-changing. And that's why SHA exists. And that's why we have this podcast available to you. So tell your friends, tell your mom, I'll tell my mom, tell your grandma, tell your dad.
We'll be putting this in the modules.
All right.
It'll be in the module.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Like you are changing the world. I meant that. You're changing the world and reducing shame in sexuality, and to be shameless about sex is kind of the goal, I think, for all of us. So thank you so much for what you're doing and putting out there. It's a lot of work, I know.
Yeah.
Don't make me cry.
We love it. We love it. It's a lot of work.
And
except for writing the book for a year. We should have hired you. We needed a therapist.
We need a therapist for sure.
For our relationship with each other.
And shame does still come up for us too. Remember, we're all human and fluidity is part of our existence, right? And so be gentle with yourselves and go get a good therapist that's educated with a SHA program, because I am, and you're listening to this. So, hey, and Amy's already got the credentials. She's a mom.
Not a therapist though, everyone. Not a therapist.
I'm an educator.
Cool.
So with that, I will say, have a beautiful day, everyone listening. Heather, thank you so much again. And remember to check out the Sexual Health Alliance website, and the respark.org is badass. That's really cool. So check that out as well. You have support if you need it, everyone. And we love you. We need your support by rating this podcast, reviewing this podcast, because guess what? If you don't do it, more people can't find it. And with all these, I'm going to swear, so earmuffs if you don't want me to hear you say fuck. But all these fucking upgrades and updates to the software systems in place, deter more listeners from finding us on iOS and probably Android too. We just don't know. But so you might have to resubscribe to us. But tell your friends. We appreciate you. This is a free resource for you. We come at you every single Tuesday. That's why we say
7 years now.
7 years. We just had our anniversary.
We forgot about it.
We
but
did. But we have
Go on and rate 5 stars.
5
Shameless
stars,
sex,
everyone.
5
5.
stars.
Yes, 5 please.
Yeah, if you say this is the best podcast ever and give us 1, like many people have in the past, we were going to be mad at you.
Many, but there's a couple.
There's at least 5 I can think of. Some 3 stars about this is a great
That's because
podcast.
they have a
Listen
lot
to
of shame.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but they give us a compliment. So anyway, I'm not going to tangentially speak
I'm
anymore.
confused.
I'm confused. We have to do a bad review again.
Yeah, we
They're
do.
fucking
That's
funny.
fine.
All right, y'all. We will see you next Tuesday. Ciao for now.
To learn more, go to shamelesssex.com.
And for 15% off some of our favorite sex toys, use code SHAMELESSSEX at purepleasureshop.com.